Happy official spring, everybody. Oh, this week has been wonderful. I hate climate change, but dang it, I don't hate the effects. Plus, daylight savings is in full swing now. Please don't make us turn back the clocks again. Let's just be done with it. We're not farming, and it's not the 1800s. Well, some people are farming. Has anyone else come across Daniel Tosh's podcast yet? It's a bit better than mine. It's so refreshing, and not just because it's Tosh. He interviews normal people around him. For example, his plumber, or not even his plumber, his producer's plumber. He interviewed a random French guy he knows, or his first makeup artist that he ever worked with 2 decades ago. It's just so interesting to hear normal people get these interviews, not just comics promoting other comics. He'll always try to find a gift from his house to bring the guest, and at the end of each episode, he talks with his dog Carl for a few brief minutes, which is hilarious, before closing with an animated story narrated by his 3-year-old kid. It's so perfect and so different from anything else right now. Plus, I think most of us have collectively missed Daniel Tosh's charm. Welcome back. Anyways, I'm rambling. I've always told myself that I would know what to do in a life or death situation, but truly, I don't know how I would react. Today, I bring you the story of Gregory Beggs. My name is Eli, and this is Murder in the Morning. I totally forgot to write down any of my sources up front today, so they will all be listed below if you're interested, or if you want to double check my citations and call me out. On October 27th of 2001, the body of 37-year-old Gregory Beggs was found mangled and bloodied in Cobb Park, just outside Fort Worth, Texas. Quote, Brad Peterson with the Fort Worth Police Department arrived and completed a crime scene search. He noted that the victim's shoes and socks were missing, which indicated to Patterson that a vehicle may have run into the victim. He also noted that there was no blood at the scene. Thus, Patterson concluded that the victim had been moved to the park and placed where he could be found. An autopsy revealed that the victim, Greg Beggs, suffered a near-total amputation of his left leg, and that he bled to death from that injury. The medical examiner initially classified the autopsy results as pending, but changed the status to could not be determined on January 7th of 2002, end quote. So it was assumed he had been hit by a car and left to die. But by who? Police hadn't the slightest idea. What at first appeared as a simple yet still utterly cruel act would soon transform into a national sensation. The following morning, Saturday, police identified the man and contacted his only son, a senior in high school. Gregory Glenn Beggs was born on August 16th of 1964, and although he struggled with mental health problems the majority of his adult life, he still managed well enough. He took care of and provided for his son for 18 years, and he held a stable job in construction as a mason worker. At the time of his discovery and unfortunate death, Beggs was currently in a state of houselessness, but was, quote, on an upswing, according to his mother. Down on his luck, but making the most out of life, he cared more about providing for his kid than even having a roof over his own head. And yet, a man who had seemingly harmed nobody throughout his life was taken much too soon. The police had no idea where to start. Anyone could have hit this man and dumped him miles from where it happened. I've often thought myself that if I had the urge to kill someone, which I haven't yet, thankfully, it would most likely be a random hit, back up, hit and run. I wouldn't want to do it, but hard to track down. Almost 4 months to the day, investigators received their first tip, and a very, very important tip at that. A woman by the name of Miranda Daniela attended a party the night prior and had overheard something awful. One of her acquaintances named Shantae Mallard told Miranda while laughing that she, quote, hit this white man. The next morning, she relayed that information to police, who immediately obtained a search warrant for this Shantae Mallard's residence. There, investigators found everything they needed to arrest her. A wrecked, dented, and burned car with blood spatters, as well as a charred front passenger seat in her backyard. Immediately, Mallard was brought into custody on charges of, quote, failing to stop and render aid, and taken down to the station for questioning, whereupon she would be released that evening on bond. Now, here is where things start to change drastically. Here is her account of what transpired that fateful night. It wasn't a simple hit and run like police initially assumed. Quote, after a night of drinking, smoking, and taking ecstasy, Mallard ran into Beggs, 37 at the time, with her Chevrolet Cavalier as he walked along the side of a highway in the early hours of October 26, 2001. He was hit with such force that his head and shoulders went through the windshield. Mallard testified, when I hit him, it was a very loud noise. All this glass started flying in the car, followed by a lot of wind, and the glass was just cutting on my skin, stinging me. She said she stopped briefly to get out of the car to touch him or tug at him, but she panicked, got back in, and drove home with his leg protruding from the windshield, while she knew he was alive. I didn't know what to do, she said. I started screaming. I just started yelling and driving. She said Beggs was moaning and his nearly severed leg was on the dashboard. She said she had pulled into her garage, lowered the door, started crying, and kept apologizing over and over to Greg Beggs, end quote. It was reported that he was alive for up to 2 hours in that garage, attached to this monstrous metal casket. Just imagine this scene. His head and his shoulders went through one end, and his leg is sticking through another end of the windshield, and his other leg is just protruding somewhere else. After he died, according to Murderpedia, Mallard called a male friend, Cleet Jackson, for assistance. Mallard, Jackson, and Jackson's cousin, Herbert Tyrone Cleveland, took the body to a park and left it there, Cobb Park, even going so far as to set fire to part of the car in an attempt to disguise the evidence. That's why the front passenger seat was charred, and the rest of it was just damaged to all high heaven. Quote, Cleet and Mallard borrowed a friend's car, drove it to Mallard's house, where Cleet shoveled the body into a blanket, tied it up, put the blanket into the trunk of the car, and drove with Tyrone and Mallard to Cobb Park. Tyrone and Cleet removed the body from the trunk, laid it on the ground, and took off the blanket. After leaving the body in the park, Cleet, Tyrone, and Mallard went to a car wash and threw away the blanket, end quote. The following day, police would discover his cold and crumpled body in the middle of Cobb Park. The ME determined, after her statements to police, that had Shantae sought help or even treated his wounds in the slightest, as in stopping the majority blood flow, Gregory Beggs could have easily survived the crash. And it hurts me to tell you this, but she had worked as a nurse's aide for years prior to this atrocity. She knew how to stop the blood flow. She knew which number to call. We all do. She knew what she was doing. So yet again, after she was released on bond, Shantae was arrested on March 6th of 2002, but this time on charges of murder and evidence tampering, not just failing to stop and render aid. Her two accomplices, Cleet and Tyrone, were subsequently arrested and charged with evidence tampering as well. Mallard's trial would begin on June 23rd of 2023, the following year. According to Amarillo.com, jurors saw pictures of the twisted, bruised, and bloodied body of this houseless man. The former nurse's aide on trial hit him with her car, drove home with his bloody body lodged grotesquely in the windshield, and left him to die in her garage. Prosecutors and defense attorneys in the murder case said that Shantae Jawan Mallard, who was 27, smoked pot, took ecstasy, and drank heavily in the hours before she hit Gregory Beggs on the highway in the early hours of October 26th. The defense doesn't dispute what happened, but says it was an accident, not murder. Defense attorney Jeff Kearney said Mallard was just one exit from her home, so she kept driving with a, quote, body entirely in her car, the head in the floorboard, legs going in directions that no one thought humanly possible. You couldn't imagine it, end quote. I don't know why he would say that statement. It doesn't really chime into any. He was just describing what happened, and it doesn't make it sound better. Although Mallard had taken drugs, she could have stopped at a nearby fire station, police station, called an ambulance after she hit Beggs. Hell, she could have even just dropped him on the side of the road, and somebody else, sooner, not after hours in the garage, could have found him, called help, and saved his life. And this comes directly from the trial notes itself. Quote, additionally, the evidence adduced at the trial revealed that the initial impact from the collision did not kill Mr. Beggs or cause injuries that would inevitably cause his death. Consequently, Mallard's actions, driving to her house with Mr. Beggs lodged in the windshield, parking her vehicle in her garage, and shutting the garage door, ensured Mr. Beggs' death by foreclosing any possibility that he would receive medical treatment. She stole his life, prosecutor Richard Alpert said in his closing argument. She stole his hope of anyone else saving his life. That is murder, end quote. 4 days of testimony later, on June 27th, the jury disappeared for less than an hour before returning with their final verdict. On Friday evening, Shantae Mallard was sentenced to 10 years for evidence tampering and 50 years for the murder of Gregory Beggs. According to CNN, under Texas law, a person must serve at least half of their term before becoming eligible for parole, which means she'll be up for parole in roughly 2027. To this sentencing, Shantae reacted with silence and tears. Brandon Beggs, son of the victim Gregory, spoke to the court moments after the sentence was announced. To the Mallard family, we would like to say that we are sorry for your loss as well, he said. To Shantae, I personally would like to say that I will accept your apology, and in return, I hope that you will accept my forgiveness. In her own testimony on Thursday, Mallard sobbed as she apologized to Brandon, Gregory's son, and to her own family, and told the court that she felt she deserved this prison time. Quote, I am so truly sorry. I am so sorry, Brandon. I am so sorry for what I've caused your family, and I am so sorry for the pain I have put my family through. I am so sorry for the crime I have done to society. I really am very sorry, end quote. But weren't you laughing about hitting some white guy to a friend at a party? Kind of being all chippy and cheery about it? I hate when people say this. But it seems like you're sorry you got caught. And that, my friends, is the story of Gregory Beggs. I have no idea how I hadn't heard of that before. Zero recollection of it ever touching my ears. An awfully sad story. Don't drink and drive, people. Thank you all once again for taking the time out of your day to listen in. I hope you got a little something out of it, or whatever. Stick around for a bonus reading after the wind chimes. Okie dokie. Bye-bye. Love you. Safe Flight Repair, Safe Flight Replace. Is it bad that I wanted to title this episode that? I know it's terrible to joke about, but I just couldn't stop giggling. Can you imagine if that was their ad? No, never mind. I'm sorry. Okay, today's read is a little pick-me-up after that crushing another pun, story, titled Always Be a Reminder That Miracles Happen by Gabrielle Roxon. Quote, Elizabeth Smart is marking the 21st anniversary of her rescue after being kidnapped. The activist and commentator, who is now 36, was abducted from her home in Salt Lake City at the age of 14 in June 2002. She took to TikTok on... oh, I can't even say that. She took to TikTok on Tuesday to say, Today is March 12th, and it will always be a reminder that miracles happen and that there are dreams that do come true and good things are abundant in this world. Quote, For those of you who don't know me, my name is Elizabeth Smart, and back in 2002, I was kidnapped and held hostage for 9 months, but I was rescued on March 12th of 2003. Today is 21 years since I was rescued. She went on to say, I know anniversaries mean a lot of different things for different people, and I respect whatever it means to everyone individually, but for me, it really is a reminder that life is good and dreams can come true, and we should never give up. This is getting corny. Smart added that despite struggles and hard times, it's important to savor the happiness and the joy in life. She then finished her TikTok video by saying, No matter where you are at, I hope you find happiness. Smart was abducted from her bed by an armed street preacher/pastor, Brian David Mitchell, in 2002. Her then 9-year-old sister, Mary Catherine Smart, who shared the same bedroom, was present during the kidnapping, but pretended to be asleep and woke her parents after the abduction to tell them what had happened. Elizabeth Smart was held in captivity by Mitchell and his wife Wanda Barzee for 9 months. She was then found after a couple had recognized Mitchell in Sandy, Utah, from an airing of America's Most Wanted. He was convicted on kidnapping charges and sentenced to life in prison in 2010, while Wanda Barzee was sentenced to 15 years in prison but was released in 2018. As for Wanda, end quote. As for Wanda, I was a bit curious about her as well, so I dug around outside of that article. She was released at the ripe age of 72 and was required strict supervision for 5 years after her release. There are no new news articles claiming she violated any of her conditions or what have you, so I assume her supervision period has since ended. A bit scary. In an interview after her release, Wanda's niece told reporters that she nor her family wanted anything to do with that woman. So good on them. They should have just let her kick it in prison. Anywho, that is all I've got for you wonderful, wonderful people today. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, thank you. Okie dokie. Bye-bye. Love you.